Hello and welcome to the show. No, it's not swinging from the hips. We're talking rugby tonight. It is our pre-review show for the weekend, and we're going to be looking at the All Blacks. We'll look at a bit of Mitre 10 action, and we'll look at the Farah Cup, I guess, if we have time for everything, with the final between Canterbury and Waikato. We're waiting with Paul to come online. He's just having a few technical difficulties. So rather than keep you guys waiting out there, we thought we'd get things rolling with Steve and myself. Hi, Steve. How you doing this evening?
Yeah, good, Ashwin. Always a privilege to jump on the show, and obviously a lot to get through. And I suppose while we're waiting for Paul, maybe we should just flip it around and start with Mitre 10 Cup, so we can, when he does eventually join us, we can talk a little bit more about that Test match in Sydney.
Sounds planned. Sounds a plan. Well, let's start off then with our Friday night match, which was Otago versus Canterbury. Otago playing away and haven't beaten Canterbury for a very long time. And I suppose the result was, though, still, even though Canterbury a young side and losing a lot of players, whether to the All Blacks or otherwise, going down to Otago. How did you see that one? I didn't.
Yeah,
Just to be clear, I didn't see that. I was stuck behind a burning truck on a motorway.
yeah, really crazy. Strange old game this. It was very, very tight and very defence orientated, especially in the first half. Of course, it was Otago who led by 6 points to 3. So there was a lot of defence, a lot of, excuse me, intent on attack, but some really good scrambled defence from both sides. But you just felt, even watching the first half, that Otago had the better attack. And if they could hold the last pass, get a few people into space, they just seemed to have a little bit more out wide with Jonah Nareki and Croy out the back. And, Michael Collins, who is a much maligned sort of player, is probably playing the best rugby that I've seen him play probably since schoolboy. Yeah, maybe even schoolboy.
Yeah.
Schoolboy
professional
rugby.
level.
And he was he led the side really, really well. And we didn't see any try scoring movements until the second half when Seal Tompkinson scored. Then we saw Mitchell Drummond hit back with a try, and then we saw Vilamoni Karoi score. Brett Cameron, who came on as a substitute, kept Canterbury in touch with a couple of penalties, but it was Slade McDowell who scored the winning try in the 71st minute, and that was converted by Josh Ioane for a 23 points to 16 victory. And they had to defend their hearts out in that last few minutes when Canterbury had one more crack. But to my way of thinking, it was a very well-deserved win from Otago. And it just seems as though ever since they got beaten in that Shield Challenge, it looks like they just sort of crawled their way back into form. And, of course, in contention as at this stage in the championship table, taking themselves to the top, which we'll discuss at the end of the Mitre 10 Cup review.
Yeah, look, interesting. Your summation is pretty much bang on to what the summary I got from my son the next morning when he was telling me. He says, like, it just felt like Otago were just making errors in that first half when they had good opportunities to score. Would that be a fair comment there?
Well, I'm just wondering when we're going to get Aiden on the next show as one of our expert analysts, because
he's still got. I think he's still got a couple of years of fine tuning to come.
No, listen, good way of couldn't have said it better myself. A very good win to Otago, beg your pardon, and for Canterbury, it just puts them under a whole heap of pressure with 2 premiership games to go, and they're sitting at the bottom of the table at this stage. And those two games they've got is
Tasman and Auckland.
Tasman and Auckland, yeah.
Tasman's away. Tasman's away. Auckland's at home, and it's going to be. Look, let's face it. I mean, if we're looking at doing a bit of crystal ball gazing, they're going to lose to Tasman in Nelson, and then it's going to be a big fired up game for that final round. With them at home trying to stop themselves being relegated. That's the way you see it, especially as we'll talk about this later. Bay of Plenty being able to overcome Hawke's Bay, but meaning that they leapfrogged Canterbury up the table. So that means that, Canterbury's looking at basically a sudden death type playoff match to not get relegated to championship in the final round.
Well, very much so. And listen, the problem that Canterbury have got, if you look at the two teams in front of them, North
Yep.
Harbour have got Counties Manukau at home, and you would expect North Harbour to maybe, despite Counties Manukau coming up with a good win today, and we'll get onto that. But
Yep.
later you'd expect them to win that game, and then you look at the other team that's just ahead of Canterbury on the table, Bay of Plenty. I think Bay of Plenty have got a reasonable sort of run in as well. As I just bring up
I think out of the two, Bay of Plenty's probably got the hardest run in terms of staying. If we're looking at oh geez, there we go. So they're playing Waikato next week. So and that's in Hamilton. And then their final game is Bay of Plenty versus Harbour.
Harbour at home, yeah.
Yeah, So it's
yeah.
actually look. Let's face it. It's mouthwatering sort of scenario at both ends of the table, really, isn't it, for the Premiership in particular?
Very, very, very much so, Ashwin, and of course the other team that's right in the hunt in our second game on the weekend on Saturday is Tasman V Wellington. I probably expected a little bit more from Wellington, but that game was played in very damp conditions at Jerry Collins Park. They took that out to the suburbs, so it was great to see. But at the end of the day, only a 19-3 scoreline was the final score, and that was after Tasman led by 11 points to 0 in the second half. So Wellington only scoring those three points in the second half, and their first points didn't come till the 66th minute. A Jackson Garden Bishop penalty, and in between times, just the two tries in the game to former Aucklander Sione Haveli, and also we had one of the Tasman locks, Siriki Devata, also scoring a try as well. So just the two tries to victory for Tasman in that game. Not much more you can really say.
No, not really. I mean, it said it seems like some of the extra players that the Wellington have lost to the All Blacks, it really seems to be having a bit of an impact on in their performances.
Yeah, listen, we during the season they've been like a tap, hot and cold. Have Wellington this season, but it just seems they do have a little bit of effect. Obviously missing Duplessis Clurfy as well, who's a big part of their loose forward trio. But in terms of some of the highlights that I did see, scrum was always under pressure, and you've got to have a strong scrum, and it was definitely a catalyst for the next game that we're about to talk about, which I happen to be at.
Hey, that's right. We'll move along to the game that you were at, which, as you said, you drove up to the winterless north in beautiful sunshine, and then you have some tropical moments.
Yeah, we get about 4 seasons in 3 hours. It was absolutely crazy. I was driving up north and I could see some dark clouds, and then you'd get over the Brent Irwins and catch some beautiful sunshine, blue sky. And of course, I get to Toll Stadium and it starts to rain. There's just a huge downpour which lasts the whole 5 minutes. Thought I was back in Brisbane actually, because that's what you get in Brisbane when you're over there. These flash downpours, and they go. And then I thought I'd do a match preview hour out from kickoff, and it looked quite brilliant. The sun was out again, and of course, right on kickoff, it rains. And I thought to myself, well, that's probably not a bad thing for Northland, because it levels the game up. We know what an exciting backline Harbour have got, but boy, it was their forward pack that did the business in the first half against Northland. Northland couldn't get any platform going. Harbour knew it. I know, talking to a few people within the Harbour camp, they had put in a lot of work on their scrum during the week, and boy, did they absolutely demolish the Taniwha at the scrum time. And of course, the 17-3 lead seemed like it might be a little bit much for the home side.
Yeah, look, I mean, surprised. Just going back a week, I mean, I didn't see the game. I just saw some highlights on that and heard some comments. But the Harbour scrum has actually been going pretty well this season, but they sort of took a couple of steps back against the Auckland pack, scrummaging wise. Is that? Was it? Well, I mean, as I said, I didn't see the game, so I just heard something. So I might have that wrong. But but
No,
for a team that looks like they're setting a really good scrum platform.
best scrum in the Mitre 10 Cup in
Right.
2020, and against Auckland they were good for 70 odd minutes in that game, but they did have a key injury in that particular game, and he didn't front up yesterday. Might be out for a few weeks. Is Nick Mayhew, son of Dr. John Mayhew.
Yep.
And
Former Rebel.
Former Rebel. Him and Sione Mawhilio have been in huge form. Their front row has been like a rock. Of course, earlier in the season they had Big Carl as well. He was running out for the All Blacks last night. So their scrum has been very, very strong this year. And really, Auckland, if you think back to last week, it was only really in the last 10 minutes that Auckland got a bit of
scrum.
Bit of dominance. I don't know under their starting 2 or 3 props if they've got much under that. But on saying that their middle row's going well, their pack's working well, and a guy that's really, really impressed me is Jacob Pearce.
Yeah, Jacob Pearce,
the Blues lock in the middle. A little bit of talk pre-game that he hadn't been signed by the Blues, that he was only on a wider training contract for next year. But if you check out our posts on New Zealand Sport Radio, there's an interview I did with him, and I put the question to him: is he signed with the Blues next year? Yes, he is, but he's only signed for the 1 year next year. Josh Goodhue, of course, is signed for another 2 years, and GTC Jared Teote Mariner or Kelly is also being signed as well. So it looks as though the Blues are really putting some investment into their middle row and props.
Yeah, Miller and Pro. I was going to say, look, with you got as you said, Mawhilio playing really well, who's part of the Blue squad as well.
Not anymore.
Who was the other prop? Eh?
Not anymore. Not
anymore.
No, Mawhilio, because they've signed Nepo Lalala.
Yep.
Sione Mawhilio has signed with the Chiefs.
It's a bit of a swap.
Some
bit of a swap there.
Yeah, and some
breaking news.
Breaking news. So a bit of a swap. Nick Mayhew is having a meeting with the Blues this week, so hopefully we'll keep our ear close to the ground.
That's an interesting one, isn't it? It's just like, how many props can the Blues hold?
I think they'd probably want to hold at least 4 or 5. You've got those 4 All Black props.
Yep.
At the minute, but listen, the more depth you've got, the better.
And it's so crucial, isn't it? It's a crucial position.
How many times have we seen teams with a really, really good starting props? You know, you mentioned this last year when we were watching the Crusaders. There were times that if their starting props, I think it was Moody and Alalatoa, didn't go through the whole game, they got under pressure when their second tier of props
were coming in.
So we've just got this is a 23-man game.
Yep, it is. Actually, you say 23, the 23 match day, and then you've actually got to build a squad of when you've got a player that goes down, somebody that can come in and be of good quality, isn't it? And it seems like, because on the day, you really, in terms of the front row in particular, you have to go through your full quota of front rowers in a game itself.
Oh, very much so. So just getting back to that game yesterday, once again, it's still in a way, Blues coaches are looking to see players, to see what they're capable of, see what they're doing, and unfortunately for the home side, it was, even though they came back in the second half, they got it together, and I think it was Rennie Ranger poked through a little kick for Scott Gregory. Interestingly enough, Northland made some interesting backline changes yesterday. Of course, they brought in Johnny Cooper, the former Ponsonby First Five, son of Percy Cooper, who played for Northland. He's a Northland boy. And I mean to say he had an okay debut, but very, very weak conditions. Tamati Tua returned from injury, and Scott Gregory, who's been playing fullback all year, went into the midfield. And defensively, they were pretty solid, but because they were getting pumped up front, there was no platform to work off. And credit to the Northland loose forwards, who were getting enough turnovers, and Harbour were making enough mistakes in the weak conditions to keep themselves in the game. Of course, Northland scoring to make it 17 points to 8, and still with 15 to go, you thought they were back in the game. But listen, Harbour got a lot of mileage off their bench in that last 15 minutes. as well. And a couple of people that impressed me. Tim Sale came off the bench. He was very, very good. And Inisi, the try scorer. And you've even got Jared Page, who was signed by the Blues last year, coming off the bench. So it just gives you an idea of the actual depth that they've got. And Tioti Mariner, I thought was very, very good as well at lock, as well as Jacob Pearce, who was sort of my man of the match. So yeah, at the end of the day, a deserved win for Harbour. I mean, so Northern would be kicking themselves that they walked away from that game even without a point. I thought at 17-8 down, there was at least the opportunity to finish within bonus point territory.
So, looking at North Harbour, they're going to be kicking themselves a little bit, aren't they, with some of the early season games that they've dropped, because they, as we said, they have actually got a good team. I think you mentioned last week or during one of our other shows that we have on rugby shows we have on New Zealand Sport Radio, is the fact is that they beat Canterbury when Canterbury had their All Blacks.
Harbour we're talking about? No.
Yeah, Harbour, yeah, sorry.
No. They actually went down to Harbour 43-29, but it was a bit of a flattering scoreline to Canterbury at the end, because Harbour were more than competitive against Canterbury on that night. And you're right, they did have a lot of their guns running around. If I go back to the team sheet that night for Canterbury, they had Josh Mackay, George Bridge, Mata Eli, guys like that running around the back. Callum Grace was there. Sam Whitelock and Luke Romano played on that night. So it was a good side. Yeah, Harbour, I believe, have played some really good rugby, and they don't really deserve to be back in the championship. But I'm confident they'll stay up. I'm predicting they'll get the win.
I think, yeah. Look, I think
Counties Manukau this week. Yeah.
Look, I mean, like, although we've sort of like talked about the dilemma that Canterbury has, at the end of the day, everybody in the Premiership has the opportunity still to make it into the top four. Even Canterbury is at the bottom of the table. So it's yeah, exactly. Nobody is actually written off within that Premiership table.
Oh, you're so not wrong. But I just can't help feel that North Harbour should get the win, and you're right. Tough road home for Bay of Plenty, and they'd be mighty relieved that they picked up that win against, today, which we'll get to soon, because I'm pretty sure I would have been driving home from Whangarei, but I'm pretty sure you would have had your television on front and centre watching that Waikato Auckland game last night.
Oh, mate, I was at halfway. I was on halfway.
Oh, mate, there you go. So loyal.
Yeah, look, I mean, to be honest, it was an interesting game. I think this Auckland team really, just an aside from the game itself, the Auckland team is really, they're playing very well. They've actually got, particularly after, and I'll get your comments on him in a second, actually, Zahn Sullivan, I think, has made a huge difference to the operation of that backline. That backline seems to have started to get some gears in motion. They're gelling a bit better, and there's a lot more effectiveness in that backline than there was prior to Zahn Sullivan. I'll leave it in that context. But in saying that, what they're doing, and we're seeing this happen, is they're still doing the odd silly things. And they'll do a silly thing and they'll compound it with another silly thing. And yesterday, really, they kept Waikato in that game a lot longer than they should have been in that game. They should have actually basically had that game won by half time. But really, it was just little errors that they keep making, that they keep making life difficult and stressful for the fans, basically. But, look, starting off, fantastic. I have to comment about the Waikato halves, and it was showing up in the first scoring play of that game when the Waikato half, now I've forgotten his name, I apologise on that, but fantastic dummy to the outside, and he just carved them up on the inside to score underneath the posts. And as I said, I don't know the two scrum halves that Waikato have got, but the starting one and the one on the bench, who I believe was actually supposed to start at the beginning of the season, they're two phenomenal halfbacks that Waikato have there.
Yeah, the two boys you're talking about, of course, Xavier Rowe, who came up from Taranaki last year, New Zealand under-20s, very good halfback, and of course Hugo Nankivell would have come on as the replacement as well. And yes, I did see the highlights of that try. A dummy that I think it even caught the Sky cameras by surprise as well. And yeah, very, very well taken. But just talking about Auckland before, for all the little things they do to keep teams in games, we know how much firepower they've got. And boy,
they have. Yep, they have this year.
And there's a guy, I'll tell you what, probably you could arguably say the two wingers in New Zealand that are the talk of the town. One's in Australia, and one is based running around in a blue and white jersey. Salesi Rayasi. Rayasi is fantastic at the moment, and gee, I would like to think if he's not signed by the Hurricanes, you think the Blues would be all over this.
Look,
can you imagine?
Yeah, I think Clark and Rayasi, but I think and let's not forget we've got Talia, who although he's been a little bit quiet at Mitre 10 Cup, was absolutely on fire for Super Rugby. But I remember having a discussion on one of our other rugby shows on New Zealand Sport Radio, and we actually I think Rayasi's still signed with the Canes for next year. I think he's still got one more year down there. Now it'll be interesting because when Rayasi got signed to play for the Canes, he was on fire then, and he basically saw no game time really in his time that he's been down there. And I remember yesterday on Twitter, the Mitre 10 account put a post up saying, "Is there anything that Salesi Rayasi can't do?" And I said, basically, get game time for the Hurricanes. It's just crazy. So it's a strange thing, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, if he's a free agent for want of a term, you'd be thinking and hoping that the Blues would be sniffing around there and signing him up. Or look, you'd be thinking that every Super Rugby side in New Zealand would be looking to, have words with him to try and get him signed up.
And listen, the other little string that he's got to his bow is he can play fullback, and he has got a very, very big kicking game as well. So those are a couple of little strings to his bow. Just on Zahn Sullivan, interesting enough, I interviewed Zahn Sullivan for New Zealand Sport Radio earlier in the year when he was playing for College Rifles. And so when did the season start proper? Around about July, I think it was.
Don't ask about dates, man. This year's been a year where you don't remember any dates.
Yeah, no, I'd virtually have to go back to the Club Rugby app and have a look. But I remember chatting to him then, and he had not been signed by Auckland then. So he was a free agent then. But boy, he's a skilled footballer. I first saw him playing for the New Zealand Māori Colts down in Rotorua. And man, actually, now that I think about it, that was only about a year ago. And he was playing first five, and he looked ever so good playing against the Fiji under 21. Well, Fiji under 21 Colts.
Look, I mean, he just looks like he just looks classy, right? He carries himself when he runs out onto the field. Now, this is going to sound a bit weird, I know, but when he runs out on the field, you can he's got a presence there. And then he's just confidence. You can see the confidence in the young lad. And he is a young lad. And then on top of that, you look at the size of that Auckland backline. I mean, you've got AJ Lamb, not Ben Lamb, Aaron. AJ Lamb, and you've got Salesi Rayasi and Zahn Sullivan at the back, and it's like three big players. Harry Plummer at 10, with his 10, and then he moved into 12, isn't a small player either. No. And then of course you've got midgets. Let's call them midgets in the form of Tamua Manu and TJ Paiani with those giants around them,
and not to mention Ruru, who's built like a loose forward. And listen, I've been quite the critic of Jonathan Ruru, but
we all have.
But I think he's been playing some really good rugby, and I think that's just on the back of having a couple of other good young halfbacks in terms of Whina Funaki and also Danny Tusitala around as well. And it's amazing what a little bit of competition does. But no, fantastic. If you were a member of the Sullivan family last night, you're probably better off if you were on the Auckland side. Of course, the brother of Balin Sullivan played for Waikato last night in the midfield. So, listen, good, comfortable win for Auckland, and I think that takes them near the top of the table. I think.
No, they're top of the table. So we were having that debate at the game, and it's just like, okay, Auckland needs a net bonus point to make sure they're top of the table, because we weren't sure if they were tied on points with Tasman, whether they'd go on the points differential or on who won the encounter. So apparently it is actually on who won the encounter if it's two teams tied on points. But I said, like, hey, look, just score the extra bonus point and be done with it, and you'll be top of the ladder, right? So makes it much easier.
Pretty much so. And I think that we're just scoring that final try right at the end, and another Tui Poloto. So I wonder if he's a relative of. I
don't know. What might have to do some investigating on that one. Look, I mean, just on obviously the other Tui Piloto, but that forward pack's actually manning up, really performing as well. They're taking the ball forward hard, but it's the defence generally, apart from the one dummy where they sort of left their Bulldogs basically off the side of the rucks to allow the halfback through. The defence is basically working pretty well, and that's starting from the forwards.
Yep, and I would love to see the stats in terms of the hard-working Adrian Choate as well, who just makes a lot of tackles, whether he plays in the 6 or 7 jersey, and just adds a bit of accuracy and physicality at breakdown as well. And listen, credit to Tui Piloto as well, when you consider he's probably come in for Riedlinger, a couple who didn't play last night, or did he?
No, he did not.
That didn't play, man. They're just building some really, really great depth.
They are. And then one man I like giving a shout out to is Scott Crafton. I was really disappointed when the Blues didn't sign him, but I just think he's a workhorse that basically just does the job. He doesn't take a backward step and does the basics and just does them accurately. I think the only thing that I'd say with the Auckland forwards is that front row might need to put a bit of super glue on their hands.
Yeah, obviously had some issues, but I'm pretty sure they'll sort that out in the winter. I suppose it would have been nicer if they had conditions. Now, Paul's just said he's in the green room. Should we let him in?
Should we let him in? I don't know. I thought he would have just added himself, tell you the truth. Here he comes. There he is. He's a bit fuzzy, but he looks like he's got a water all over the screen.
I'm just rebuilding my main computer, and I'm on a backup computer, so that's why I'm all fizzy.
Looks like he's got Vaseline over the top of the camera.
And that's why I've got no. That's why I've not got control. You have control of the show because I'm not logged in. So let me just.
Just onto Waikato. Like we talked about this in earlier show. Waikato have actually come along quite quietly. They were sitting at the top of the table prior to this round starting. They really didn't fire any shots yesterday, apart from that early moment with the road try. We talked prior to the show. Do you think it's a bit of a mistake in terms of starting with Adam Thompson and Liam Messon, as opposed to having some of the younger blood and just experience in the background?
I think they just got outplayed by Auckland tactically, right? I mean, they were trying to play from their own half. They didn't execute, whereas Auckland, look, until late on, Waikato was still in this. Auckland only scored their points in the last 10 minutes, I think it is.
10 minutes,
but they absolutely controlled the game with their kicking. And Waikato's kicking was just poor at the end of the day.
Yeah, look, I mean,
I think that might have to do with the fact they've got two sevens players in their back three, which might be part of it. So they've not got kicking players back there. I'm not sure. But I think having experience is generally a good thing rather than a bad thing.
Yeah, I just sort of thinking though, but it's like we're looking at just transitioning in developing your squad and your team going forward. It's just like I don't know if it's being useful, because then basically next year what's going to happen? You're going to have basically Adam Thompson and Messam still there, or they're going to be gone, sort of thing. So I'm just sort of thinking from a developmental situation as well. You maybe start with one, and then you have one on the bench. So if things are going really pear-shaped, you can bring that extra experience on. But it's sort of I think when you look at effectively what Auckland's done with some of their loose forward and they rotated them, and as a fan you're going, what are you doing? Just put on the strongest team. Tasman's sort of done similar things as well, where they've actually at times rotated their squad as well, with the players that they've got. And I just sort of think they're looking to make sure that they're developing their players as well as performing in the competition.
Yeah, but then again, at the end of the day, Waikato here are in with a chance of winning the whole thing, right? And therefore, hey, how about getting a trophy now rather than something that you may not get in the future? So you say, yeah, they are taking the other route, aren't they? They are taking the route of we will actually play our best players, which you say you cry out for teams to do, and now you're damning them for doing it. So.
But that's what I'm questioning. Is it really their best team? I mean, when you got, Liam Messam, I think's got a bit more in him, but I'm not convinced that Adam Thompson has actually got the legs to be playing Mitre 10 rugby. I haven't really seen the performances put in at this level, even when he was playing for the Chiefs, to be honest, because I know he came into the Chiefs squad as well. And I just think that it's an interesting call to have him both into the Chiefs squad and then into the Waikato squad as well. In terms of, I think they'd be getting better performances out of someone else.
Obviously, clearly, you're one of the highest paid and one of the best coaches in that does the Lions, just like Gatlin. So you know these sort of things. Look, for people like Gatlin and stuff to rate him, they've got to be seeing something there. And Mark 10 Cup level, definitely. At Super Rugby level, I'd question mark him now. Well, he's got the legs, but at Mitre 10 Cup level, absolutely, he's got the legs. And I've just managed to get my real computer working, so I'm going to just jump out and jump back in again with a decent camera.
Right. I suppose we'll move on to the games that were played today, and I managed to see all three of them. I don't know how.
You've seen all three of them?
I have seen all three of them.
That's a good effort.
I had two screens on at the same time watching the Hawke's Bay Bay of Plenty game and the Manawatu Southland game. I think we'll start with the Manawatu Southland game because there's really probably not a lot to say. Of course, Manawatu doing the business, winning by 24 points to 12 after they led by 17 points to 7 at half time. It wasn't a bad sort of first half. Now this game was played in Fielding as opposed to the normal Palmerston North showgrounds, and it was battle of the desperates for Manawatu, desperate to get a win over Southland, and for Southland it was a win that they really needed to stay in contact and put pressure on probably both Taranaki and Northland.
So obviously looking at that, well, let's say prior to the game starting, we would have been expecting sort of Southland to tip over Manawatu.
Well, they haven't won a game all season, so yes.
Yeah.
yeah. I suppose with Southland, they've had a couple of injuries here and there, so they're a little bit banged up. And I must admit, I still thought Southland would actually win that game. Of course, Manawatu losing their best player for the rest of the season in Jamie Booth. So a real hard one to replace. He seems like their little spark in the number 9 jersey. But like I say, this game was played in very, very windy conditions. And it actually seemed like the team that played into the wind actually played better than when you had the wind. Just like I say, watching two games at the same time, I'd always see the team that was playing with the wind or stuck in their half all the time. So obviously both teams guilty of not tactically getting it right.
Yeah, I mean, when I had a chat with the assistant coach for, I don't know, have you talked about Battle of the Bays yet?
We're getting to it shortly.
Oh, okay.
No, that's right. Go for it.
Okay, so when I was talking with the assistant coach for Hawke's Bay and Joel, Joel, isn't it? I think it's Joel. I've gone blank now.
Josh. Sorry.
Josh. There you go, Josh. Thank you. Josh, and he was saying that actually, they should have been 17 points up at half time when they were playing into the wind. The wind was worth minus 14 points in the battle in Tauranga. So yeah, similar thing, which is interesting there. Yeah, that some teams are playing better, or sometimes actually playing into the wind, where you overkick sometimes, or and you deliberately keep it in the hand more. You style the opposition of the ball. And as long as your attention's fine, then you're going to do good out of it, aren't you? If you turn it over in your own half, you're going to cause your own self problems. But
so our friend of the show, Steve Cornflake's version, would have been happy he was working today and not seen the game then. So where did it go wrong for Southland?
I was driving, so sorry, missed that one.
Oh, listen, I just think that they were their own worst enemies. They had all the territory in the second half, but just a mistake here and a mistake there. They looked, to be honest, if they look back at the percentages of ball, they definitely had more of the possession, but just didn't take their opportunities enough. Interestingly enough, even though the Manawatu are on 9 points after that win, they're actually still an outside chance of making the top four if they can win their last two games and a whole lot of results go their way.
I have to go back there a second, but
expecting this in the championship, isn't it? You play four crossover games out of 10, so you expect to lose all of those. So there's only 6 games. I mean, the top of the table generally has won about 6 games or just over half-day games. So so if you can get 3 wins or 4 wins, you can see yourself in the playoffs.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what Northern have done. They're teetering on 18 points with 2 games to go. Unfortunately, they visit Eden Park on Saturday, and they've got Waikato up home. That's in. Speaking of taking the game out to the rural area, that's up in Kaikoui and on the 14th of November. But boy, you've got to say, to be safe, they have got to win one of those games. Now, if they get stuck and Manawatu do win their last 2 games, or Counties Manukau win their last 2 games, anything's possible. We'll get to that game shortly, because I think we should talk about the Battle of the Bays. And unfortunately for the Hawke's Bay, it's Bay of Plenty Steamers that are the Bay again for what, 5 years?
Another year?
Yeah, 5, I think.
5 years in a row.
Wow.
Surely they're going to earn the title. They're going to keep it permanently soon. If you sort of, it's like when you win a trophy for three years, 3 competitions consecutively, you get to keep the trophy.
Yeah, well, the Steamers took the chocolates today, but the Magpies will be scratching their heads how they actually won that game. I think a real big turning point was basically Hawke's Bay getting in behind Bay of Plenty, and we saw an intercept in the first half, and boy, I thought that was a huge play at the time.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Hawke's Bay played all the rugby in this game, absolutely all the rugby, and just didn't get the points for it. And off camera, there were definitely some question marks, some questions about how the maul was refereed. For example, had a chat to one of the other assistant coaches, and he's like, "Just don't talk to me about the game." Just don't. They were not happy at all. Absolutely.
What were they not specifically happy about in the maul? I mean, watching it on TV, there were a few question marks, but I wouldn't have said it was a major impact on the game. I don't know what. Yeah.
No. That was part of the thing. But the other big thing here was that for all their play, their line-out misfired, and for a side where their line-out maul is a key weapon for them, if Ash Dixon isn't hitting his jumpers, that takes away one of your big weapons, and that was a big problem for them today. Was their line-out just fell apart. Let's be honest. And sure, there was a breeze there in Tauranga. It's by the sea. There always is. It's an open ground. But he shouldn't have missed the number of lineouts he missed.
Yeah, well, I've got to say though, we were so used to seeing Ash Dixon scoring these tries from close range, but I thought that 50-meter, well, it wasn't a 50-meter run, it was about a 20-meter run, and the kick over the top and the chase, something like that could have gone either way. But it could
have gone either way. That was a clear try. How they disallowed that, I've got no idea.
Yeah, well, I actually thought so too at the time. It just would have been fantastic. But boy, at 32 years old, he definitely belies his age. I was a little surprised that the Hawke's Bay coaches pulled him off with 15 minutes to go, because I thought he would have been crucial in terms of his leadership in those last few line-out drives. But the question I've got for you, Paul, the Steamers had lost their tight head prop Ross Heldenhuis for collapsing the maul, so they were going to be down to 7 forwards. Why did Hawke's Bay not take the scrum?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, clearly, eventually there was a scrum because he did come on, but you got to say, I think they're programmed that that line go to the line out. That's what we do, and that's how we score points.
Yeah.
And sometimes you've got to read the game situation better than that, rather than just go, "This is how we play." So it's perplexing as to that. Clearly, I didn't ask Clayton. I didn't ask him bluntly. You didn't play any rugby, so how did you win? Because let's be honest, they hardly had the ball. So how they got the win without the ball is mighty impressive. I mean, big defensive shift from them. You've got to say.
Yeah.
Hawke's Bay, we're talking about. Look, there's a whole bunch of players they didn't play today as well. I think the Ranfurly Shield Challenge has taken its toll on them. They rested a bunch of players who they're going to bring back next weekend against Wellington. And you've got to say that has their focus been a bit more on the Ranfurly Shield than actually on winning their away games. Maybe
happens to. It happens to quite a few teams that would end up with the Ranfurly Shield, isn't it? As the fact is that the focus ends up being holding on to the Ranfurly Shield, and the away games do suffer.
Yeah, some teams after they lose the Ranfurly Shield, their form dips, and it's hard to get yourself back up again. And I think we've got a couple of we've seen a couple of variables. We spoke about Otago. Otago have just seemed to have found their mojo. Got a couple of people, Josh Dixon in that engine room, who played so well for the Highlanders, has returned. Slade McDowell, the number 7 in form at the moment, where you sort of go to the other side of it, and we'll get to Taranaki in a moment. It's almost like they're falling off a cliff.
But I mean, to be fair to Hawke's Bay, they played all the rugby. They should have won this game. Absolutely, they should have won. So to be fair, they I think that they've actually built up a good amount of depth so they can rest players. And they have rest players, and they're going to have selection issues come next weekend. They're going to have some upset players who want to play. And I think Hawke's Bay are still having a very good season, to be blunt, even though they've lost this one.
Oh, no question.
No doubt about that. Yep.
Yeah, definitely got to go along with that. And they're well ensconced. If they don't finish first, I'm pretty sure they're going to finish second, either one of those two positions, especially with Otago to play Southland next week, and just the one game to go.
Interesting situation though, isn't it? Otago top of the table. You'd say they're probably looking mildly like favourites to sort of take out the championship. I mean, obviously you get to finals and anything can happen, but you could have a scenario where Canterbury gets relegated and Otago goes up, which would be just a weird thing to consider in modern rugby.
Yeah,
I just think Canterbury. I don't think it's so weird that Otago going up, but it is very weird.
No, not Otago going up, but I mean, like, you sort of think, oh, hey, there'll be 2 South or 3 South Island teams with Tasman as well, but it's just the old traditional. I suppose, Steve, you know where I'm coming from with the old traditional side of things. I
can tell you, as somebody who supports a team from the championship, that's all we need. Canterbury down in the championship. because don't get me wrong. You can just see them being a bounce back, just like that. They'll be down one year and back up the next. They're too good a side.
Now, somebody made a comment regarding Wellington. There was a Wellington Waikato obviously got relegated over the years. And I don't know about Waikato, but I know Wellington actually didn't bounce back straight away because Hawke's Bay beat them in a final, I remember, to go up to the premiership. So Wellington actually spent 2 years in the championship.
Yeah,
I think it was 3 because I think Waikato went up ahead of Wellington as well.
Yeah, you might be right, Paul. You might be right. Yep,
that's right. Wellington had that, but if you remember the season that they went down, it was an absolute shocker. I think they lost all 6 games, and I think to me that's the difference. Canterbury will look back bar that Bay of Plenty performance, and also if you look at the age of some of the younger brigade in the side, I think they're more than capable of bouncing back in 1 year. Hey, let's not forget, Auckland was only a game away a few seasons ago.
Well, that was the season where it was like, so what happened there? So Auckland was basically going down. Waikato is the final round. Waikato Harbour playing down in Waikato, and Sean Stevenson stepped up for Harbour from like about on the angle. It would have been well over 50 metres and nudged it over to win the game, which meant Waikato went down and Auckland stayed up.
Yep, and I remember
you talk about Canterbury though. Yeah, you're right. They lost by 1 point to Taranaki, by 1 point to Hawke's Bay, by only I think again. They did beat Wellington actually, didn't they? They lost by a point
in the extra time.
They've won 3 games by a point this season. So they could easily be top of the table, and yet they're bottom.
Yeah, they're not a bad side. I mean, to say they had a bad day at the office against the Steamers. It happens sometimes. They got blown off the paddock in the first half, and they unfortunately they couldn't recover. They plenty got their tails up, and as they say, that sort of stuff happens. There's a 4-letter word I was going to say, but I thought better not.
I mean, that's
excrement happens.
That's between top and bottom of the Premiership is 3 wins.
Yeah, no, we talked about that before. At the end of the day, even like we're talking about Canterbury being relegated, they still have the chance to make it into the top 4.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Totes.
Hey guys, we should keep moving. I've just noticed the time.
Yeah, I noticed the time. I know.
The last game of the weekend. Now, I actually said to Ashwin before the show, this is definitely an upset. I expected Taranaki to win this game. Counties Manukau been struggling a bit this season, but man, full credit to Counties Manukau. They won this game because they stayed in the fight in the first half. It was 12-10, I think, at halftime, and the reason being they defended into a gale. They hung in there. They had a couple of opportunities, a try-scoring opportunity. They actually took their one opportunity, but man, also big ups to the way Kieran Reid. He's not the skipper of the team, but boy, the
way he leads, you don't have to be the skipper just to lead, do you? You can still, yeah.
The little things whenever the group would stop, you could see him talking, and it was fantastic. So if that's Kieran Reid's last game in New Zealand, man, what a great way to go out.
Yeah, I mean,
what's the story there? Sorry,
we're hanging on though, but a yellow card in the 85th minute for Counties. I mean,
so I wanted to talk about that yellow card because I did momentarily get that yellow card mixed up with Jeff Thwaite's yellow card in the Bays game, right? And it's like that yellow card for Counties actually helped them out because it meant that Lindenmuth got to come back on the field and their scrum was shored up and it became dominant after he came on. So that yellow card helped Counties because they did the smart thing. Again, coming back to the 9-year-old that I watched the games with, and he goes, do they have to take somebody out of the scrum to change the prop? And I says, no. And guess what they did? They yanked it back. So they had 8 in the scrum and Lindenmuth at loose head, and their scrum was powerful.
Yeah, smart. So obviously, now you would imagine there would have been Reid would have been making a couple of calls in there.
Yeah, you'd think so.
I've got to add Simon's comment though. If Canterbury get relegated, does that mean the Crusaders have to move to Nelson as Tasman of the senior province?
No.
Well, as good as look, I mean, I have to say the fight from Counties to hold on their line, the defensively, it was great defense, really. I mean, the penalties were coming from the scrum, so it's not like they were getting offside and doing sort of cynical killing the ball type scenarios to stop Taranaki winning. I mean, there was one penalty for that, but it wasn't. It was the continual penalties were from scrum time infringements rather than from ruck infringements on the line sort of thing. So great fight from Counties to hold on, and as I said, the experienced man helping out with the last turnover of the game to win the match for them.
And a lot of young guys in that team as well. So no, good on them. And more importantly, they've got an outside chance of making the top 4 if they can get. You laugh, but it's on. Although to be brutally honest, they play North Harbour away next week, and that really could be and should be the end of their season. But you never know.
Oh, you just don't know.
And their last game is Southland at home, and I think they'd want to go out with a win. So all these teams that are sitting towards the bottom part of the championship are all sort of slitting their own throat at the moment. Dare I say it?
I was going to say,
drawing air
is
and
there any
breath.
team in the whole competition that isn't in with a shout of the playoffs with 2 games to go?
No, no, it's great. That's exactly what you want.
Yep.
Well, it just makes the first 8 rounds pointless, doesn't it?
And before we get to the All Blacks, we should just touch on the Farah Palmer Cup. What a finish, Paul!
Oh, what a cracking game that was! I mean, 8-7 was the result, but boy, there was a lot of rugby in the game that it was only 8-7. I mean, look, Coxidge ran things for Canterbury, and she basically said, "Waikato, you can have the ball in your own half," and Waikato were like, "We're not going to give it back to you. We're going to try and play from here." And that was basically the whole 80 minutes with them was them either turning it over in their own half and then defending their line. But no, I mean, Canterbury just wouldn't. Waikato just wouldn't kick the ball. So they had to. They were trying to play out their own 22 the whole game, and you're like, wow. So good on them for sticking to the game plan, and so close with that try being scored after the hooter had gone. So yeah, cracking game to watch.
Two things stand out for me, Paul. Obviously, Canterbury could have had this game well and truly sewn up in the first half. A couple of the opportunities that were blown in that first half, one, the winger just basically all she has to do is catch it, and she could have tripped over the line and scored. And there were a couple of other opportunities, but also right at the death there. Once again, it highlights how important, if you're going to run the clock down, man, you've got to have your pack right up your backside to keep cleaning everybody up. You don't want one or two players, or you don't want to create a turnover. And really quick thinking by Coxie. She didn't want to go to another set piece kick to the corner line out. She tapped it, she saw the space out wide because counties had all basically compressed in that last play of the game. And boy, rest is history. You kind of feel a bit for Waikato.
I didn't see the game, but I saw effectively a quarter final when Auckland and Waikato played at Eden Park. And one thing I noticed with the Waikato squad, they're not a big forward pack. Effectively, the team right across the park looks the same size, whether it's the forwards or the backs. So they did pretty well to muscle up against the Canterbury forward pack, especially when they weren't giving it back to them. Just not in the last few minutes.
I mean, the Waikato team are known for having dangerous players across the park, and so hence that's why they're trying to. They've got players who can break across the entire back line, so they were asking the full Canterbury line to defend, and they did basically. Yeah.
Listen, I thought it was great after seeing some really, really big scores this year. How ironic that the final came down to a 1 point. A 1 point ball game, just absolutely nuts, if you know what I mean. So, congratulations to Canterbury, and they go through the whole season unbeaten. So, full credit to them.
They do. Yeah, Waikato's only loss was that game, but the other thing, I don't think there was one collapsed scrum in the whole game. I'm like, wow, you just don't see that in the men's game, do you? Whereas in the women's game, the scrums for some reason stay upright.
No, I think that wraps that up. But that gives us about 5 minutes to talk about last night's test.
Yeah.
Well,
we can't go longer.
I was going to say clearly there's only one incident to talk about, and boy, why wasn't it red in the first 5 minutes?
That's a red card.
That's a red card all day long.
That's a red card all day. That is a red card all day. That is a. If you go looking for red card definition in the Oxford Dictionary, you'll see a picture of Dungunu's tackle on Eroni Clark in the air.
Geez, that would have been that. If it was Ronnie, he would have come down with a thump. Maybe
sorry, Caleb. How many times are we going to make that mistake over the next few years?
To be honest, I just got back from Murray, and I just happened to see the incident, and I thought it would be a card of sorts. I didn't think red myself.
What gives you the mitigation? What would you say is the mitigating circumstance for not being a red?
I just wanted to see an even contest.
Well, I'll be honest. That was the only reason I was sort of thinking, oh, just give me yellow. I was thinking, give me yellow, because otherwise the contest was dead from that point on, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'll be totally honest. Listen, great win by the All Blacks, but when I looked at this Wallaby squad without Tumua and a really, really fresh-faced sort of midfield, I just thought to myself, regardless of the conditions, I actually thought this is going to be a long night for the Wallabies, and unfortunately, so it proved even without Ari Savia.
Yep, and you got to say that's the injuries to James O'Connor and Tamua were massive for this side, and they just didn't have the composure in that first half. They panicked, and then it was all just far too much to come back from. This did not feel like a record win for the All Blacks, right? They didn't play that well. They played well, clearly, to win.
Like we spoke about, Paul, they played well in those little moments when they scored the points, and the rest of the time it was like wasn't it wasn't really a great match.
Guys, if I can put it this way, it was like watching a really good premiership team play a championship team. You kind of knew what the result was going to be, and it was just really a case of what the margin was going to be. Listen, great to see Hoskins Tutu get a start. Did most things right, but man, what a perfect way to make your debut against a side that you've pretty much sucker punched by half time, and really should have went in with a 33-0 lead as opposed to a 26-0 lead.
But you think like Eden Park last year, where they put on like 55 points or something, and you're thinking that felt more dominant and more record win than this game. This game didn't feel like a record win.
Well, it comes back to a comment you made, Paul, and we talked about this obviously this morning, I think it was, or last night, whenever it was. But it's Australia in that first half had absolutely no composure, and so anything they tried was just rushed or ill thought out, or there was no thought in it. Really, it was just basically passing the ball around for the sake of passing the ball around. There was no structure to what they were doing in any format or any form. So, and then in the second half, with their first try and the only try that they scored, there you go. There it was, but they didn't duplicate it. They didn't keep it going.
If there's one thing I took out of the All Blacks' performance last night is they completely negated with the tactics that they used, the line speed Australia had used so well in the first two tests. They just negated their line speed. Obviously, the little kicks over the top, the positioning, changing directions, looking for mismatches. Yeah, just I wanted to see a contest, and I was a bit disappointed. I actually went to bed. You're always happy as an All Black supporter to have a win, but man, I wanted to see a genuine contest, and on that level, I was disappointed.
Yeah.
Just and just in terms of their game strategy, there's a couple of games that I just don't. There's a couple of teams you could say. I'm going to go back to Mitre 10 as well as the All Blacks. Why do you do high balls, aerial bombardment to someone that includes Geordie Barrett at the back of an All Blacks? And Caleb Clark is showing that he's no mug under a high ball. Why do you consistently keep kicking it to them? It doesn't make any sense. And I was going to come back in the Auckland game. It's the same. Waikato were kicking in, not last week because I didn't see it, but the week before. So I can't remember who played. Teams that keep kicking to big back threes that can defuse.
Here's a question for both yourself and Paul. When was the last time we've seen an All Black winger with such a complete all round game? He tackles. He's good under the high ball. He cleans out. That amazing turnover. Jeepers, he just about lifted the guy off the ground with the ball. And the comment was made during commentary. This kid could be a complete winger. Like we've seen big block busting wingers like Rico Ioane and Julian Savia, who are all big, powerful men 1-on-1. But boy,
let's.
Hang on, you're talking about Geordie Barrett here being the all-round winger.
No.
Caleb Clark.
Okay, phew. I was hang on.
I got it.
What have you been smoking, sir? Haven't you seen what the result of the referendum was?
No, I was going to say. I was going to look. If we go back to what many people.
There's 500,000. Isn't there 500,000 special votes still to be counted?
Yeah, exactly. Let's not count any chickens yet. Or any
I'm counting those on Monday and Tuesday, so that I'll let you.
But I mean, like, we could talk about Jonah as well. Jonah wasn't great under a high ball.
Yeah.
I mean, like Caleb Clark under the high ball, on defense, work ethic around the field, doesn't just sit on his wing. He popped up on the right wing as well. So he's getting involved in the game, and he's doing it with a high level of accuracy on what he does.
Also, have you seen the him photobombing the Ian Foster's interview as well?
Yeah.
So he's also got a bit of he's got a bit of cheeky about him. You don't see it on the pitch. On the pitch when he's playing, he doesn't seem to have much. He's a very serious player to me, very quiet and serious. He just doesn't. He's not.
Have you seen his smile?
Well, I think after the game you see the smile. I don't think you see it during play, do you?
Well, yeah. I'll tell you what. It's a shame the world and its form is at the moment, especially that we don't get to play the Springboks. But boy, there's another side I would absolutely love to play right now, and that's France, because they're playing some great rugby as well. I don't know if you want to touch on them, Paul, when we get away from this particular. We'll come to that, but boy, it's at the moment we're seeing an All Black team that's getting there. It seems like it's getting their mojo back slowly, but it's a bit hard to gauge because the opposition at the moment, I suspect Dave Rennie just wants.
He's still in rebuilding phase.
He's rebuilding. He wants to try a lot of players, and we've seen, and they're making some little gains. I like the halfback that came on, and I especially like the look of Jordan Pataya.
Yeah, well, he made that. He created that try. He basically created that try, really. Hey, just back on Caleb Clark for a sec. This is like, but that was a bit of a, you're starting. I remember the South Africans always use, Jonah never scored tries against us. He might not have, but with the beast of the honeypot theory, how many holes did that open up across the rest of the field when you've got 15 men trying to tackle one guy? And it's just like, he's the danger. We got to go shut him down. So everybody goes to him like an under 11s game. And it just opens up the rest of the field, right? When we look at some of the breaks and the runs like Geordie Barrett actually made through the midfield, it's like that doesn't happen automatically because these days defensive lines just stretch out across the field. That happens because you've committed too many players to one facet of the game and opened up another area.
Boy, doesn't I was going to say Hoskins Sotutu also offers up a skill set from the back of the scrum. The pinpoint pass to Ioane.
Oh yeah,
just to create that extra bit of space. Just
very zinny, eh? Very zinny.
Very
also
very zinny,
two players there who you can see have played together a lot, right? And with the Blues, but also with maybe also occasionally at Auckland at level, maybe in training.
They did last year. Last year there was they did have a few games together as well. Yeah.
So I think that there was also a number of players, two guys who played a lot together.
Good put down, eh?
The
no worries with that one.
Oh dear.
Just to answer Simon's question about the Wellington Tasman game, I was wondering. For a moment I was sort of thinking, hey, we didn't talk about it. No, but we did because we remember mentioning it was played at Jerry Collins Park,
and it was wet,
not at Westpac. Yeah,
that's right. That's the only thing I know about the game. It was wet. I didn't see that one.
Nope.
Cool. So, do you want to have a quick touch on anything else from that game, or do you want on the Bledisloe Cup, or should we go on to Six Nations?
I think something I mentioned. I suppose. I mean, Australia had a few injuries, so their hand was forced a little bit in some positions with some of the players that they picked. Hopefully, they're in a position where they can pick their strongest team, and we get competition up in Brisbane.
Yeah, just my point on it. Listen, Ian Foster, you've brought a whole lot of other guys, taken a whole lot of guys over there. You've got the Bledisloe wrapped up. I reckon give them an opportunity. Just see what these guys have got.
And Tupou has to start.
But you've also got two games against the Argentina, who have had no rugby. So there's definitely everybody who's on tour in Australia should get a game. Should get game time. Absolutely.
Even the dirties.
The whatever those are.
There's in the old days of the tours when they only they're basically the players that only played midweek.
Dirt trackers as the
Dirt trackers.
But yeah, absolutely, they should all do that. Six Nations then.
Yep. Well, hail England, Guinness Six Nations champions for 2020. Who would have believed it after the first game of the round when France knocked over England 24-17, Paul? And it's quite an irony that those two teams end up top of the table, and it comes down to points difference at the end of the day.
Yeah, and of course, I also obviously only one bad thing happened to England today, which was that I spilt maple syrup down my jersey, so I'm not wearing it. So it got dirty. I was eating pancakes, arseholes. Otherwise, it was good.
What did we learn, Paul?
What did we learn? Well, yes, eat over the plate. Look, I wasn't up for that game. I didn't wake up for the Wales Scotland game or for the England-Italy game. Italy-England game. Italy-England, look, I think we all knew that was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
The only question was, could Ireland beat France with a bonus point, or could France rack up a massive win? And yeah, they couldn't. Talking about France at the moment, they are playing some wonderful moments of rugby. But it is moments and individual bits of brilliance that are getting them their tries, rather than necessarily good structure and good play. I think this team's got a lot of room for improvement to add on.
But
their moments of brilliance are fantastic.
They've got 3 years of fine tuning to do, haven't they?
Oh yeah, look, there's a long way to go. They've got plenty of time before the next Rugby World Cup, but you're still talking about some guys who are really, really young as well running that team. You're still talking guys in their early 20s who in Intermac and stuff. They've got another 2-3 Rugby World Cups in them, at least another 2 Rugby World Cups in them. So they've got this is a team that's got a lot of runway ahead of it. This is not a 2003 England team that's going to disappear the next year. This is a team that's got, it's got a lot of room to improve on top of what is some absolute fantastic, lovely rugby they're playing at the moment. And
something I learned this morning was the Fijian player in the midfield for France is actually born in Auckland, in New Zealand.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, they're taking players out of New Zealand all the time.
So this is New Zealand raiding the islands again. If he hadn't gone over there and brought his parents over to play rugby, then he would never have been born in Auckland in the first place.
Yeah. Paul, I was about to say with the French, despite the fact that yes, they don't always play a lot of rugby, and you think back to that game this morning, Ireland had most of the ball in the first half, but the French just showed they had 2 opportunities, and boy, some of the tries they scored, talk about pretty to watch. Really, really good tries, good offloading.
Good tries.
I mean to say the try that was scored by Intermac from the DuPont when he just got it before he got taken to the touch. What a good try that was. And in those 2 halves, boy, they've got they're building a nice, a couple of real world-class halfback and first 5 combination. And boy, a pretty grunty sort of forward pack. But I just like the first instinct from turnover.
France always has nasty players up front.
Yeah.
No, grunty.
Yeah,
but grunty and nasty. I mean, but it's one of these. I've gone blank as what I was going to say now.
That's right.
No, that's okay. They were very impressive, and they can only get better. They'll probably regret that round 4 loss to Scotland at Murrayfield. I think it was pretty much the one that cost them, because if you probably look at them, they'll probably feel they missed a trick. But listen, full credit to Eddie Jones and England for coming back and taking it out when it mattered.
So, question I've got:
they're a young team that are going to lose the odd game like that against Scotland, because they do rely at moments on moments. I mean, I was going to talk about a couple of years ago. There used to be a lot of talk around the All Blacks around, oh, look, they've only had 40% of possession, but they've won the game by X amount. You only need lots of possession if you're going to take 23 phases to score a try. If you're scoring your tries off turnover ball, or off first phase, you don't need that much possession to score a lot of points. And that's what they've got. They've got those moments of brilliance at the moment, so they can score quickly. And so possession becomes something that isn't that actually significant a stat when you're talking about someone like France.
So just going back to like Simon's just mentioned Ireland, and I think Wales as well. What's going on there? Because you'd have to say Ireland, the way they played today, and obviously Wales' result against Scotland, where they've gone down to Scotland. There's some issues there in Welsh and Irish rugby, and things are going to be looking a little bit harder in terms of what the papers are saying for our friend Mr. Pivac coaching Wales as well.
Pivac's in trouble.
That's blunt.
Absolutely. And the big question here is, look, following Gatland in an unprecedented length of service for Wales and an unprecedented level of, or
success.
Since what, 60s? The Wales have not had such a good team. To follow that up was always going to be difficult. To follow that up and then change the style of play, which is what Pivac's trying to do. He has a very much more expansive style of play than Wales. Than Gatland. And you got to say that that is going to take time. And also, is that a style that works when you have less time and more pressure at international level? Perhaps he doesn't have the cattle to do it at that level. We'll have to. So he's.
Time will tell.
Time will. Well, I'm not sure time will. I don't think he's going to get time because I don't think. What is he on now? Seven losses or something on the trot. 7 or 8 losses. I mean, they've not won since the Rugby World Cup. I think. So I'm not sure he's won a game, or if he has won a game, it's like, well, I think he might. I think maybe he'd beat the Barbarians, kind of thing. So he's got it. So if he probably has this. He probably has 4 games during the autumn rugby championship, whatever they're calling it, or the Autumn Nations Cup or something, to get a couple of wins in. Otherwise, he is. You got to say he could be out by the Six Nations.
Wow. Looking forward to that. I mean, these teams have had a couple of obviously Guinness Premiership games under their belt, so they should have at least some sort of combinations going forward. Listen, an announcement just getting away from rugby made by Boris Johnson today with regards to COVID and restrictions. Did you catch up with that in terms of what's going on?
No, I did see that he had obviously that France went into lockdown towards the end of last week. England did overnight or this morning. I saw there was a mention that English Premier League, so the football was allowed to continue, but I didn't see any references to the rugby.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. We're blessed down here that we're still getting rugby and crowds, and even at the Bledisloe last night, even though it was restricted and the wet night, was still good to see some sort of crowd there. I reckon about 20,000 in a 100,000 seater stadium, mate. Doesn't look great.
It doesn't. Again, you understand? Yeah, they're all social distanced. It's groups of 4 or 5, and then you got to have surrounded. So they're still doing that in Australia, whereas over here we can. We can have people sat next to each other at Eden Park and still only fill a tenth of the ground.
Hey, I just talking about Wayne Pivac. I went looking to see how many games he's lost since being Wales coach, and came up with an article where they've got a quote from Andy Nicol, who's obviously providing some sort of comments, former Scotland player, and he says basically for Wayne Pivac to follow Warren Gatland is like David Moyes following after Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. Which basically sums it up, doesn't it?
Oh, look,
he's having as much success as Moyes as well.
Yeah, it's a real tough ask to follow, but yeah, he's in. I think he's in trouble.
Trouble at Mill.
The trouble down mill, not trouble at mill. If you're not careful, I'll have to get my mum to do another pronunciation thing. Simon does make a good point here that there are players where in the Southern Hemisphere, you'll see a clear out, or players will sort of disappear after every World Cup in Britain if they can survive for 2 seasons. Someone like Alwyn Jones, for example, he's stuck around for 2 more seasons for a Lions tour. I can't see Alwyn Jones going to the 2023 Rugby World Cup. Really, let's be honest. So yeah, you do have players sticking around perhaps a little bit later beyond their sell-by date.
And speaking of him, 149 tests, overtaking Richie.
Broke the record.
That's it. Well done, sir.
Yep. Not the way he would have wanted to celebrate.
No. True. Very true.
Paul, just before we wrap it up, it's strange seeing a lot of these games with crowds, and we know the atmosphere is a real big thing for home sides or travelling fans away. Does it sort of take something away from those particular teams when they're playing at home?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because so we have Gainline Analytics. Ben Darwin did some research. I did some stats. I remember him saying that for the NRL, and also Major League Soccer was one of these things that teams didn't tend to come back. So if you got behind, you tended to see bigger blowouts when there's no crowd there. So yeah, definitely there is an element that perhaps teams don't. If they get down, they stay down. They don't get lifted by the crowd to get back into a game. So it's that's so I think that's probably part to do with it that we'll see there. It makes watching it really strange because some TV companies have done crowd noise better than others, and boy, the BBC haven't got it right, or whoever was doing the England game. So I did see a bit of that game. Was it England game? I think have not got it right. You got cheering at the wrong moment, and you think you hear cheering, so you perk up and look at the screen and go, "Oh, okay,
nothing's happening."
Yeah. Little bit like spaghetti.
It's all a bit weird to watch.
I was about to say a little bit like watching a spaghetti western.
Spaghetti western.
Yeah. Just on crowds. According to Try Sports app, is on Sky Sports. Yeah, of course it is. Sky Sports just isn't going to let Spark get TV rights to international rugby, and they normally have the November internationals anyway. Also, interesting one here is going to be the production around this, because Amazon have got the rights to the Autumn Nations Cup in the UK. So it's going to be interesting, and I think they're producing a show. So the production of those games is going to be interesting, and also how Amazon has their first foray into rugby is going to be interesting.
That'll be very interesting. Hey, just talking about crowds, Steve, you saw that game at Jerry Collins Stadium. What was the crowd like in the smaller stadium, and how did it work?
Hard to know, because the main camera was sort of operating from the main stand, but you could actually feel the atmosphere when you've got a crowd inside a smaller stadium. You hear a lot of noise, and it was good. You knew there was a crowd there, but to be honest, because they got beaten 19-3, they probably didn't have a lot to shout. Yeah, they didn't have a lot to shout about. Also,
the weather was pretty poor. I think I definitely saw a few people on Twitter going, "I'm glad I didn't bother trying to get to that game because the weather was awful." When I put my interview up, which I'll do after this, with Clayton McMillan, he talks about the difference of having a crowd in a small stadium compared to a big stadium, and how it can feel much bigger. So we'll talk about that during our post-match interview. Oh, you want me to close the show out? I thought you were.
No. I was just saying thumbs up for that. That'll be interesting. Okay. Listen. Yeah.
So thank you everybody for joining us in the live chat. Always great to have you there. Don't forget that actually obviously we love you to like and comment on our shows, but the one thing we would really ask you to do is hit that share button, folks. Please hit that share button if you have enjoyed the show. Share it with your mates. Let other people know. Word of mouth. Just tell them, hey folks, listen and watch New Zealand Sport Radio. That would be much appreciated. So have a great weekend. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. with the morning sports briefing. Monday evening, we will have Swinging from the Hip at 8 p.m. Tuesday, we'll have the Driving Wall Show. And Thursday, folks, will be the standoff. No basketball, I'm afraid. With the standoff because it's State of Origin on Wednesday night. and also the American election. But there you go. So we don't want to clash with the American election. Everyone wants to know if Trump wins or not, don't they? But more importantly, we don't want to clash with State of Origin for all you league fans. So we'll talk. So join us on Thursday evening, 8 p.m. for the standoff.